Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another amazing episode on the Unleashing Potentials podcast. I'm your host, Bernadette, and joining me today is Elizabeth Kipp. Did I pronounce it right?
Kip, yeah, Kip.
Awesome. Welcome back to the podcast, Elizabeth. This is your second time. Happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much, Bernadette. I'm thrilled to be here and thank you for asking me back.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Always happy to have anyone come back on the podcast to share. For those of us who haven't heard your story or the first episode, can you give us a little glimpse of the work that you do and who you are?
Sure. Yeah, I'm a stress management and historical trauma specialist, um, addiction recovery coach, ancestral clearing practitioner, uh, yoga teacher. That sounds like a lot of things, but it's all under stress management, right? All those things are things that help address stress management. I also work as a betrayal trauma recovery coach, very specific platform, very specific focus. Um, and my experience, and I've been in business since 2014. My experience is that I lived with chronic pain for 40 years, which went either undiagnosed or improperly misunderstood, really improperly treated and misunderstood. And finally, I found a doctor who understood the nature of chronic pain, and I went into his program, and I went in with 40 years of chronic pain, and I walked out 52 days later with no pain.
Wow.
And in part of that journey was the last 31 years of that 40 years was I was on prescription opiates and benzodiazepines.
Mhm.
And the last 15 years of that was fentanyl and Ativan. So very high powered stuff. I mean, I don't think you're going to meet too many people that survive 15 years of fentanyl or even were on it that long, right?
Yeah.
So I don't, it's remarkable to me. I had the prescribing the doctor that prescribed that medication for me because that was his only answer. Uh, you can't his the approach was you can't heal from chronic pain. This is the best quality of life we can give you.
Mm.
Um, was actually an inaccurate answer. It was the only answer he had. And it's the only answer that a lot of the medical community had at the time. It just wasn't accurate.
Yeah.
And I have a science background. So when they told me that I couldn't heal from chronic pain, I knew I knew that they were working with a model that was limited because they're working within the scientific framework, and the scientific framework is limited.
Mhm.
Scientific framework can only comment on that which it can observe, measure, and describe. But where do we live? We live in the all it is. We heal in the all it is. Science is only looking at the part that it can observe, measure, and describe. So it's not able to comment on or address anything outside that. So it's a limited framework. And Western medicine works. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with Western medicine in terms of like it's amazing at what it's really good at, which is, you have a car accident and you get trauma, you need to go to the emergency room, is really good at that. It's
Mhm.
not good at chronic illnesses. It's just not set up for that. It's not good at that.
Yeah.
So uh, so I knew that they were operating from this limited model when they said I couldn't heal from chronic pain. And I knew that I was going to have to access all of it in order to heal. I was going to have to look wider, widen my lens. And I also knew that a couple other things. One, they're working in a scientific paradigm, and I know paradigms shift. Right. So we used to believe the earth was flat, and we when it isn't, now we know it's a globe, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's just a little example. I mean, I know they're flat earth people, but I'm just saying like there's this other possibility, right?
Yeah.
Um, And we didn't used to know about plate tectonics, and we do now. So, there's a lot of stuff that's unknown. And because of my science background, I was trained as a scientific researcher. So I understood kind of the underpinnings of the model that the doctors were working within.
Hmm.
Paradigm shift, limited model. Third thing was they said you can't heal from chronic pain. They didn't say the odds are, they said you can't.
Hmm.
That's inaccurate because science is all about probabilities, it's not about facts. So that was the third thing that was like, off. And the fourth thing was that I felt, based on the limitation of their model, that they were telling me more about the limitations of their model than they were telling me about the body's ability to heal.
Mm. Yeah.
So I heard what they said, and I just kept looking for an answer. I knew there was more of an answer. There were all kinds of alternative things that I did while I found this one doctor, Dr. Prescott. He wrote a book,
Mm.
Conquer Chronic Pain, an Innovative Mind Body Approach. He passed away in 2016, but he left us this amazing book. He's got exercises in the back of it, and I helped him write them because I had done them, and I happened to be a writer, and it was very handy, and he was just having difficulty writing them out, so I helped him. So it's not just, he explains the landscape of chronic pain from a doctor point of view, and then he's got these really cool exercises. And then I wrote this book, The Way Through Chronic Pain: Tools to Reclaim Your Healing Power, as you'll appreciate this. This is what makes the book a little different from other chronic pain books. I wanted people to know, doctors, nurses, family members, anybody that had a friend that had chronic pain, and chronic pain people. I wanted somebody to talk about the inside voice of a chronic pain sufferer,
Hmm.
because we don't tell the truth. We're either good or and we're like, quiet, or we complain all the time. We're kind of not, we're kind of there, and neither of those is really the truth. And we really don't want to put that on other people particularly, and we don't even want to acknowledge that we even have the damn thing, chronic pain. So there's a lot of untruth living in that space. And
Yeah.
I wanted to bring some truth to the landscape, and really kind of set the landscape out so people understood when they're working with somebody in chronic pain what they're dealing with.
Hmm.
So it's not so much about my story, although my story's peppered in there. It's really about the tools that I used, that kind of like what's happening with chronic pain, what's happening in the mind, what's happening in the body, and then or the things I used to heal. Some of the things that Dr. Prescott did, they're in the book from my point of view, and then I've got some other things that helped me that he didn't cover. But uh, that's kind of my story. Um,
Hmm.
I well, I went into a treatment center to get off all that medication and into his chronic pain management program. And while I was there, so it was a campus of 100 patients. There were 4 staff people for every patient, which is amazing. So there's 500 people on campus. And in the afternoon, the 20 of us patients went to Pain Tract at Dr. Prescott's program, and the other 80 went to relapse school. They didn't have a chronic pain problem. Well, they didn't have a diagnosed chronic pain problem. They were trying to get off alcohol or whatever, even though that's still a chronic pain issue that wasn't
Mm.
labeled that way. So they went to relapse school. So I didn't get anything on relapse. Relapse being you shift your behavior kind of off your drug of choice, or maybe it's codependency, or maybe it's gambling, or whatever the thing is. You get off that, and then you relapse and go back to that behavior. That's what relapse means. I didn't get any training in that. and And so I asked my counselor, well, I'm not getting any training in learning about relapse. And she said, there's an 80% relapse rate in the first year. And in my head, the first thing I said to myself was, "Oh my God, well, I don't like the odds here. I'm doomed." Because those are, wow. And and the second thing I thought to myself was, "What's wrong with this model that we can't do better than an 80% relapse rate? Like that's a 20% success. That's not
Mhm.
okay." So I dedicated myself in that moment. I said, when I get out of here and I get my own stability and my own recovery, I'm going to do what I can to change that needle, to move that needle on the relapse rate. And I'm going to spread the message that you can heal from chronic pain because so many doctors for so long said you can't heal from chronic pain, and that was just inaccurate.
Mhm.
So imagine I had all that training. And it devastated me to hear that. I had to I had to like do the thinking thing, and I had to go back and rely on my science background to like be able to dissect what they said. But most people don't have that training,
Mhm.
so they hear you can't heal from chronic pain. What happens? They don't because they believe it.
Mhm.
And now we've got the mind feeding the problem even more.
Yeah, 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 that's true. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you. Yeah, I live with chronic pain. I've lived with it for years, and it's so depressing.
Well, that's part of it.
And
Yeah,
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 I've tried everything. I've been to many doctors, but I
yeah.
haven't tried holistic approaches and medicine. That's my next step. And at times I do lose hope because here I am seeing many different professionals, and all of them are telling me it won't get better. I have to be on pills for a long time. I
Yeah,
can't get surgery, so I'm living with it. I have to
yeah,
live with it.
yeah, yeah. That's, I'm sorry to hear that's still happening.
Mm,
Um, what I'd like to do at this point is really just for you, in case you haven't heard it,
mm,
but for the listeners, really,
mhm.
to kind of break down what the hell is chronic pain
Yeah, yeah.
anyway,
Please do.
so that we actually understand what is happening.
Mm,
Pardon my swearing.
mm,
Um, So chronic pain is any pain that's felt 15 days out of 30 for 3 months or more.
mm,
Any pain, physical, emotional, mental, psychological, spiritual, financial. It's all the same. All those things send the same signal to the brain. It hurts. So the brain can't distinguish between a grief experience
mhm,
and if it's lasting for 15 days out of 30 for 3 months or more, it can't distinguish between a grief experience and a broken bone, a broken heart and a broken bone. It can't tell the difference. So
mhm.
take that in. That's number one. So I just blew the whole about for most people, I just like, oh, it's not just physical, it's this other thing. So right. So I just blew that up.
Yeah.
So depression um, is part of the landscape. I know it well.
Mhm,
I was never diagnosed as with depression, but I was never sat in front of a psychiatrist and had an interview while I was in the chronic pain experience for them to even have that option.
mm,
It was just like, oh, well, if this is what I've got to do, then I'm just going to push through life. And if I'm depressed, it's just too bad. I have to still push through. Right. And so that's kind of like, I just like, why would I go to a psychiatrist there's no hope here anyway? So I kind of, that's kind of the way I saw it. Um, and I knew that they're still working in that model.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And I was trying to get outside. So I'm not saying I was taking the Western medicine and throwing it out. I was just saying that I was noticing its limitation. And I'll say that what I learned from that was that it doesn't matter what kind of healer I'm sitting in front of, we're all looking through a lens.
Mm-hmm.
We all have a scope of practice that we stay within, and we can't go outside of that. And so if I'm sitting as a patient asking someone who's whatever they're doing, like if this is an orthopedic person or an acupuncturist or a Reiki, whatever, they all have a scope of practice that they stay within. And so I have to make sure that I'm asking questions that stay within that framework. Like I literally forgot that I had a compression fracture or break or somewhere in my body, and I asked my orthopedic doctor after they set my bone. I said, "What foods? Oh my God, what foods can I eat that will help me heal my bone? The bone break." And literally, he said, "There aren't any."
Mm-hmm.
Now that's like inaccurate, but within his scope of practice, he'd not studied nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
And so his answer was there aren't any, and he should have said, I instead of saying there aren't any, which is literally what he said, he should have said, I don't know of any.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
still, I asked a question outside of his scope of practice, and I got the answer that, what was I expecting? Right? Because it's not within his reference point, right? So I kind of mistake. I'm just giving everybody an idea of like, what am I talking about? So
Mm-hmm.
that when you talk to your healing person, you have this idea that they've got a scope of practice and they have to stay within that. And it's not just only for insurance purposes, which is a big piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just part of their ethics. Like I'm an ancestral clearing practitioner. That's not part of the insurance system. And I'm an addiction recovery coach. That's not part of the insurance system. And both of those practices are very specific about this is my scope of practice. This is what I can talk about within this. Anything outside of that, I'm bringing right back into my well here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's just kind of noticing that. But back to chronic pain. So gave you a definition,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm going to say chronic pain changes the brain.
Oh, it does. I believe you.
Well, you're living it, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
chronic
Yeah.
pain changes the brain.
Yeah.
So we need to bring healing modalities that heal those changes in order to heal from chronic pain.
Mm.
That's another major point.
Yeah.
Very simple, but that's a big statement,
Mm-hmm.
right? Chronic pain changes the brain. In order to heal those changes, we need to bring modalities that heal those changes.
Mm-hmm.
Meditation is one of those. It's it's a big one, right? And I'll get into that later, but I'm just saying, like, there are, that's the approach. Now,
Mm-hmm.
in the human body, there's this thing called a stress response, which is a bunch of physiology and psychology and biochemistry that arises when we perceive a threat, either perceive or are threatened in our environment. Whew, stress response goes on. No, or run or fight or whatever the thing is. There's a response to all of that, and then we meet the threat, and the stress response goes back into the off position. That's a balanced stress response. In chronic pain, the stress response gets stuck in the on position.
Mm-hmm.
We're not made for that.
Yeah.
That's a very caustic to the body. It's toxic. It creates, we're not made for a constant bath of stress hormones. So we get these things like we can't think straight. I don't remember stuff. I get super negative. I'm mad at the world. I'm mad at you. I'm mad at me. I'm whatever. I just like, and it's not necessarily mad, but it's a negative. I turned it in on myself and my self-esteem. By the time I got into Dr. Prescott's program, my self-esteem was
Mm.
right at the bottom of the, you know, under the rug, It's like, oh my God.
Mm.
So, um, also, it's because it hits the emotional center in the brain, and so our emotions, we already have a little negative bias anyway when we're balanced. That's just kind of part of the way we're made.
Mhm.
But in chronic pain, that negativity gets accentuated as part of the emotional center getting hit.
Mhm.
So the other part of that is, it's not so with the stress response is out of balance because it's stuck. And so we want to do things that bring that back into balance. That's part of healing, the changes that happen in the brain. So I don't have chronic pain anymore. But what do I have? I have the old stress habit that was underneath it that fed it. I
Mhm.
have that. And I'm almost 12 years in recovery, and I'm healed from this in mid-September of this year. So this reporting 1925, 2025. But every day I sit down and I do my morning practice, which is at least 11 minutes of some breath practice to remind my nervous system this is how we're doing life. I had to really rewire that, my tendencies, that habit of being stressed and being in that hyper vigilant, always looking for when's the next threat coming,
Mhm.
which is exhausting, by the way, that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the things that you experience, that are coming up for you as I paint this landscape for us?
Oh, so much. So much is coming up. Um, it's getting better, but I used to and a little bit lived in flight or fight mode because of mental health. All right. I've shared this openly, schizophrenia. My symptoms are at bay. I don't experience it, but there's the residue of trauma and response from it. I always feel that I'm in danger, especially when I leave my house.
Mm.
So yeah, you were talking about memory.
Uh,
It's been happening more frequent. Um, I would get up to grab something. By the time I get to where I need to go, I don't remember what I need to grab. It happened probably 3 times this week.
yeah,
I just don't remember.
that's short-term memory being messed with. That's indicative of a brain chronic pain.
Yeah.
I could watch a movie just before I went into, for maybe about a year before I went into Dr. Prescott's program. Seriously, it was it was like this. I could watch a movie just before I went to bed,
Yeah.
be all engaged in, oh my God, look at this, whatever, amazing movie. Get up the next morning, watch it again like it was new because I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
My memory was just,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just, oh
Yeah.
my God.
Yeah. And
So
and
short-term memory gets really gets affected,
yeah.
and that's difficult for you. It's difficult for anybody to live their life like that. But when we've got kids now, that's the whole nother layer
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
oh my
Yeah.
God, that's right on top of all of it. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I find that times I talk to people, but I don't really have close friends because they all went away eventually. I find that some people have a very hard time understanding me, maybe other people who's going through what I'm going through.
mhm.
When they're talking to me, they talk so fast, they add so many topics and pile on top of it, and I only got one word or one sentence. And in their mind, I don't respect them. I'm not paying attention when really I'm trying, but it's too much information. I
Yeah,
just cannot come up with an answer based on a book that I've been fed. I can only pick a sentence out of it. I don't know if
Uh-huh.
that makes sense.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. That's the information processing in the brain. And I was born left-handed, and they didn't have a name for dyslexia, but I'm dyslexic. And I again, I just had to find my way in the world, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They didn't know dyslexia was not a thing when I was a kid. It was a thing for me, but nobody knew, there wasn't a name and all the things.
Yeah.
So part of and I was actually a chronic pain sufferer when I was little. I just didn't know it until many, many years later. And part of my experience was I had difficulty learning. So
Mm,
you and I are, I didn't have quite the limitation you did, but let me tell you, my parents sent my brother and I to a college prep school in pre-kindergarten,
mhm.
and they didn't hope that we excel, they expected. So it's just like, oh God, okay. And they didn't, a learning disability was not in their, like, that was not a thing.
Mhm.
The teachers didn't know to look for it. I didn't, and I did. I worked so hard to try and keep up and stuff. So they didn't catch it, and so it went completely unnoticed, except to me. And I would go home. My brother never did homework. He would sit in class and just, like, whatever they learned in class, he would just, there it was. He was able to process all this stuff. I need to go over and over and over, and then I need to go over and over and over again. Right?
Yeah,
Once I get it, I get it. But to get it, it takes, yeah. So
yeah.
that was I understand the information processing thing. I'm better now, like a lot better, but I still, like, I heard a lecture last night, and I was like, ding, 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 like there were maybe 4 or 5 points I could tell you right now that he talked about. I'd have to go and listen to it again to fill in all the details, because, like, it was just packed
Yeah,
with information. It's
yeah,
like, holy cow, we're off to the races here. I can't keep up.
yeah. Yeah,
Right.
and that's how I learn too, and that's how I process information. That's why I turn to arts. I paint, and that's the only place I can find freedom to be myself and not be judged by society. Because
Beautiful.
it's
Yeah.
so frustrating when people like you and me are having those difficulties learning and connecting to ourselves and society, when we get judgments on top of it. And
Well, when we get
then
judgments and
like,
then we allow the judgments in,
yeah, yeah,
right? Because I mean, at this point in my life, I'm a little older than you are. At this point in my life, it's like, go ahead and judge me. I really don't care.
yeah,
But it took me a long time to get there.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. I'm
right.
right there too. I'm grateful I'm there now. Yeah.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the stress response gets unbalanced, uh, and in chronic pain, now and you and I, we've had it long enough, right?
Mhm.
That now we've developed a habit in the nervous system
Mm,
of chronic stress, because that's underneath it. Like, how are we reacting to the stresses in life? I got all kinds of tools today, and I'm like, I've grown my capacity to handle
mm,
stress, and how I'm much more neutral in my when stuff happens. I'm more neutral, rather than, I don't do that so much anymore.
mm.
Um, but it took a lot of application of the tools to get there, and I have to, every day I have to keep using them, right?
Yeah.
So um, the chronic stress thing is, like, I'm always, there's that part of me is always looking for the next threat, so that hypervigilance.
Mm,
And the other part of it is, I'm always trying to get into the next moment,
mm,
or I've got a foot in the last moment, and or the past somewhere, and I've got another, so I've got 3 feet. really. I've got one foot in the past and one foot in the future and a half a foot in the present because
Wow.
I can't, I'm not. So my work and my recovery has been, what can I do today to be more present in my life?
Mm, yeah. You
Because
just
all the
described me.
information, yeah, all the information is right here in the present moment. It's not in the past and it's not in the future. It's right here. But if I've got a habit of like, what's happening? What's going to happen next? Or, oh my God, just what happened? What just happened? This happened before, and so this is going to happen. I'm missing the present.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You have the blessing of having children, and the requirement of being a mom is being in the present moment because that's the only that's the only way to handle kids. It's like, what's
Yeah.
happening now?
Yeah. 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 They sure keep me on my toes. Yeah. They pull me back to here. Yeah. 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 I have a question for you. Based on everything that you do, would you say that chronic pain is rooted in childhood trauma, lineage, and ancestral, and also abuse?
Yeah, yeah, I love the question. Um, I was just talking to my brother about this, uh, and we were talking about the difference between the question is so perfect. We were talking about the difference between the orientation of kind of traditional colonialized American society and indigenous people.
Mhm,
The point of view there is in a colonialized white society, the orientation is trauma, unresolved trauma from your childhood.
mhm,
The orientation, and this is why I'm a historical trauma specialist because I've sat in these BIPOC places. I'm kind of the only white woman, but I'm still there, right? I'm still trying to learn and understand. Uh, the indigenous model is that it's all intergenerational. It's
mhm,
all of it's intergenerational. So they don't even use the trauma word. They use intergenerational trauma. That's the term that they use. So they're always bringing in the ancestors and the frequency from the pen. They understand the oneness. So it's not just oneness in the present moment, it's oneness in all time,
yeah.
past, present, and future. And it's oneness versus separateness, which is like in kind of colonialized society. That's what it is. It's like you're over there and I'm over here and I own this and you own that and all that kind of. That's not the model
Mm,
that we all started with in the tribal. It's just completely different.
mm,
So intergenerational. So it all has a root, and anybody that's got chronic pain, I say this, anybody that has an addiction, which is any behavior you continue to do that has negative consequences on your life, anybody that has an addictive behavior or process or whatever they do, they were a chronic pain sufferer first, and before that, there was unresolved trauma, likely being intergenerational.
mm.
That's my point of view. That's why I bring in ancestral clearing. Is that one of the first things I do with a new client, ancestral clearing, and I'd be happy to do an ancestral clearing for the group tonight or today.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Walk us through the process of it. What do you look for and how do you do it?
Oh, well, that's a whole podcast in itself, but I'll break it down quickly. So ancestral clearing is ancestral healing is a large field, and there's all kinds of ways that you can that people come at it. Ancestral clearing is an actual registered trademarked process that was pioneered by a man named Howard Wills, and then later trademarked and registered and is taught by a man named, further developed and taught by John Newton of Health Beyond Belief. I'm one of his practitioners. I've been in the work since 2014, and I love it because my first experience of it was I was sitting in Dr. Prescott's pain management program, and I had my science hat on because I didn't know where I was. And, he's doctor, and so I'm science lens. And John comes in, he was a wellness practitioner in that program. He comes in and brings in this process. And I felt the effect of it. And and my first inclination was like, what just happened in this room? I know something happened because I felt it myself, and everybody was experiencing it. And
Mhm.
I was like, can we measure it? Can he repeat it? And, does he teach it? I went right into science mode, but this has actually got a foot in science, and it's got a foot in the outside of that framework.
Mhm.
So we're asking in this process, we're asking creator, that thing, whatever you call that made all of this, we're asking it to help us release that which no longer serves us. We do it in the present moment. The quantum physicists tell us that through the present moment, we can access past, present, and future all at once, which is kind of a sciencey explanation for why ancestral clearing works in the first place.
Mhm.
And so, oh, and then there's also kinds of like there's science about how we carry the energetic frequency of behavior patterns of the past through the generations. There's actually studies done on that, but you know way before there was science, the, the spiritual teachers have been saying this for thousands of years, that we carry the imprints, the gifts and the burdens of our ancestors. So ancestral clearing is a process where we actually ask creator to help us release that which no longer serves us. We use the word forgive to mean very, very specifically offering up that which no longer serves.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then we do it with humility and gratitude to please and thank you.
Mhm.
And the idea there is like we carry stuff. I don't even know I'm carrying it, but I might feel the weight of it, but I don't know what it is. And like I felt I felt the weight of my lineage by the time I was 4. I just didn't know how to word it. I had no words for like the experience, so I just noticed it and held it, and that was it until I ran into this practice. So it's done, the practice itself is done as like a prayer. There's also like about 30 different ways at this point that we can get at the burden. So you've asked it like, how do you do it? There's a lot of different ways that we can, a whole different bunch of processes we can use to figure out specifically what the thing is that the person's, and we can do a more general clearing, which I can do right now. Um, that's one of the like 30-ish process that we can go through in a group setting.
Mhm.
So I'd love everybody who's listening to just sit quietly. If you're driving, don't listen to this now. Listen to it later. But sit quietly and just notice what sensation you're feeling in the body. Like I can feel my sitting bones on the chair and my feet on the floor. And I took a niacin supplement this morning so I could feel the flush. I can feel that that heat kind of coming into my body, and that's what niacin does. It'll give you kind of a flush of heat as it moves through. Um, that's about all I'm feeling right now. It's just as an example. So decide and notice what you're feeling as sensation. I'm not asking about emotion, I'm asking a sensation, and give it a number of intensity from 0 to 10. Mine is about a 5 because the niacin flush is pretty strong right now. Um, yeah, normally I'm sitting at about a 1.5, but not in this
Mhm.
moment. So this is where I am. Notice where you are, and I want you to just sit quietly, breathe normally, and let these words pass over you. Remembering that we use the word forgive to mean offering up that which no longer serves us, and we offer it up to whoever, whatever you call that which created all of creation. O divine spirit, creator of all that is, all that you are, we thank you for the many bountiful blessings you've bestowed upon us and our lineages. We come to you knowing you're always here with us in your great and vast nature. We ask humbly and gratefully for us and all our relationships and all of our ancestors and all of their relationships throughout all space, time, dimension, realms, lifetimes, and incarnations. For all inherited energies passed down to us that were residues of wounds we didn't create, but were born into. For all the stories we created because of them. For all the misunderstanding, blame, and suffering that ensued in the lineage as a result. Please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please, and thank you. All the times any of us were abandoned, neglected, or otherwise betrayed by parents, caregivers, partners, or the community, in love, in friendship, or leadership across the family line. For letdown that we felt and all the deep mistrust of life and love that followed. For not feeling safe to receive support. For any fears of being abandoned if we turned into joy, visibility, or our truth. Please help us all to forgive and release one another and forgive and release ourselves, please, and thank you. Everyone involved directly or indirectly, for all of it. Please and thank you. For all addiction and escape patterns any of us fell into, whether alcoholism, drug abuse, emotional eating, gambling, control, achievement, codependency, or any other pattern that kept us from looking within ourselves to the answer to our wholeness. For the legacy of numbing our pain as a survival strategy and how that kept us from living life fully and allowing ourselves to feel you, Creator, flowing through us. For all the limiting beliefs, judgments, and conclusions we made or had that kept us playing small, not able to reach our full potential in life. Please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please, and thank you. For all the experiences we had of injustice, persecution, systemic oppression, or other betrayals of authority figures, teachers, coaches, doctors, nurses, lawyers, judges, spiritual leaders, and anyone else we look to for leadership. For the times we felt anger and profound letdown at you, Creator, and for how that weighed on us in our lives. And for any spiritual grief we felt that made trust and surrender seem impossible. Please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please, and thank you. For all survivor's guilt, for any shame we carried while others in the family or the community suffered, for any inherited guilt from past hurts or harms done, for any time we were unable to stop harm from happening. Please help us all forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please, and thank you. For all sexual hurts and wrongs and any time they were minimized or went unspoken. For all secrets within the family and how in such darkness those secrets festered into wounds. For any shame carried in the family around our innate animal nature, and for any confusion or conflict about any of our relationships to sensuality, boundaries, or expression. Please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please. Thank you. For all conflicting DNA, any energetic tug of war in the lineage, opposing values, unresolved family feuds or vendettas, or mixed ancestral allegiances. For any negative residue left from the genetic imprints of both the oppressed and the oppressor. And for any felt sense of identity confusion or not knowing where we belong. Please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please, and thank you. For how any of these wounds kept us playing small in life, for any fear of being seen or heard, or stepping into a position of leadership, for the times we felt we had to suffer in order to earn love or even have a sense of belonging, for any time we fell prey to subconscious sabotage around success, intimacy, or abundance, for any cycle of perfectionism or imbalance between giving and receiving. Please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please, and thank you. Please help us step into our power and find freedom from the burdens of the lineage. Help us to release these patterns and turn back to realizing our inherent wholeness that can never be diminished. Please help us reclaim that space within us where our true self was, is, and ever will be. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. I just take a big breath in and let it out. Just notice how that feels in the body. I know that was a lot of words and stuff, but the energy of it, you don't have to keep up with the words, just feel the energy of it. That should be enough.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. That was so powerful. Um, every single word were unspoken wounds that, and for me at least, I knew they were there, but I didn't have language for them. And
Yeah.
as you spoke, like that's what that was. And I just feel it weights being lifted off me. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for this beautiful gift,
Yeah.
for
You're welcome.
sharing what you do.
Yeah,
Wow.
sure.
Wow.
So you can imagine, I was the first time I experienced this, I'm
Mm,
sitting in a class of 20 chronic pain sufferers,
yeah.
and he brings this prayer. This was not the prayer, it was one like this. And I got halfway in. Remember, I'm detoxing from medication.
Yeah.
I'm just in the beginning of my detox, like, 2 weeks in or something. And I felt halfway through, we didn't even say it out loud. We just read it quietly to ourselves. I got halfway through the prayer and I was like, I felt the room shift. And I was like, okay, Elizabeth, you're detoxing. You just imagine that. I just like, I didn't even believe my senses because it was so like, what's happening here? Right. Then I get a little farther into the prayer and I felt my pain start to dissolve. I mean, I was at a 9 when we started, and I was at a 2 when we were done. And I was like, well, that's real. That's actually happening here, you
Yeah.
know? And then when we got done, everybody's reporting the same, drop. And I was like, that's why I was like, what just happened? What
Mm,
is
yeah.
this? Right?
Yeah. 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 It's very
So
powerful. Yeah.
yeah, so I went and studied it, and I love it so much. It just helps people. It's a big part of a chronic pain problem because we're carrying that burden. So that's why it's the first thing I do with a new client after I help them like regulate their nervous system. Like I'll take them into 3 minutes of kind of a breath practice to get them calm
Mhm.
if they're dysregulated, and then I'll bring in ancestral clearing so that I can help them release that burden, and then we can talk about what's left.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Incredible. For those who are watching who may want to connect with you and work with you and maybe support what you do, how can they do that?
Oh, sure. You can find me at my website, which is my name with a dash. Elizabeth with a hyphen, Kipp, KIPP.com. Uh, just, get free information there. There's ancestral clearing prayers. There's, a shop. You can book a free introductory session, et cetera, et cetera. So ElizabethKipp.com. Elizabeth-Kipp.com is Elizabeth Kipp Central. So
Amazing.
thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. I have one last question for you.
Mhm.
What is the meaning of life for you?
Oh, that was the subject of last night's talk with this guy. It was very interesting. And I a little bit disagreed with him, but it's okay. I have my own opinion about that question. At this moment in my life, I feel that the meaning of life is to really learn the wisdom, learn to listen and live through the wisdom of the heart.
Mm, I love that. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for who you are, for what you do, and for sharing your gifts with me, with my audience, and with the world. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Bernadette.
You're welcome.